You would think from the title that Tin Man is going to be a Data story. And while he is heavily involved, it's not really about him. That's because the Tin Man is derived from something else. Dennis Russell Bailey and David Bischoff, the latter being a prolific SF writer, wrote a short story in the 70s called Tin Woodman, the tale of a misfit boy with mind-reading abilities who is sent on a space mission where they have come across a self-aware spaceship and he becomes enraptured by it. The name Tin Woodman coming from the nickname for the ship because it had a heart that needed mending. The Nebula-nominated story was eventually adapted into a full-length novel, and so eventually into this TNG episode. According to them, they, along with co-writer Lisa White, did so after watching Samaritan's Snare and realized they could do so much better than that shit. It was during Season 3 when Michael Piller had taken over partway through, and they were constantly up against the wall trying to get scripts done. So they entertained the idea of this trio putting the script together to give the writing staff some breathing room, letting them have the chance to save stories that had potential but needed reworking, while Tin Man took shape with little need for rewriting. The reason you don't see Lisa White's name in the credits is because at the time, guild rules prohibited to have that many names, so Bailey used her middle name as his own in the credits to try to give her some credit. The story begins when their survey mission is interrupted by a rendezvous with the Hood under Captain DeSoto.
Hey, Will. Will, you getting soft on board that luxury liner?
No, it's just a coincidence that my uniform is no longer spandex. But this is an important mission requiring orders to be personally delivered, along with a mission specialist.
His name is Tam Elbrun.
As in Tam Elbrun of the Garushta disaster?
That's the way I picture everyone's reaction when they're going to be working with Captain Archer. Jonathan Archer, of the Klingon disaster, the Time War kerfuffle, and the cause of what historians refer to as the Great Clusterfuck? We are so screwed. Troy would like to come meet Tam because she knew him at the psychiatric hospital on Beta Z, where he was a patient. Of course, just because you have been in such a place doesn't necessarily mean that you're ill-equipped to handle a delicate mission. We can often forget that the second word in that place is hospital, and we don't immediately conclude that someone out of the hospital after a broken limb will never be a skilled athlete again. It's possible, but it's a case-by-case basis. In Tam's case, it seems that he's come down with a serious condition, which I believe psychiatrists call flaming douchebag. The only one who doesn't get treated that way is Troy, since they know each other, and also Data, because he's the only person who can't be read, and that's a real novelty for him. But past that, he's a real dick, finishing people's sentences for them, sometimes before they can even start, and regarding everybody with distaste. We can, however, understand where Tam is coming from, even if it does little to make him more tolerable. First, the disaster that he was involved in resulted in nearly 50 deaths, so there is trepidation from some, distaste by others, over his role in that event. So having everyone around you constantly accusing you is going to be wearing thin. Also, Tam is a unique telepath, one whose power has always been switched on, so he has lived his entire life being bombarded by people's thoughts. This not only makes him disinclined to want to hang around other people, but, well, imagine if you were in a place where every time everyone was going to say something, they went through an elaborate ritual ahead of time. They can't simply tell you when your appointment with so-and-so is. They have to do a 60-second song and dance routine with you first. You run up to somebody on the street and say, "Hey, I'm running late. Can you tell me which way to the courthouse is quickly?" And they come back with, "Oh, the courthouse, our lovely, lovely courthouse, built with the care of so many hands, built to see to it that all is as it should be. Yes, the House of Court, yes, indeed, such an important place for all of we. It is downtown, past the bank." Thanks. Can you tell me where the nearest bus stop is? "The bus that goes to the courthouse. Oh, what a weary life for such a bus." Imagine that is everyone you meet, all the time. Eventually, you're just going to despise everyone for the fact that they don't want to cut to the chase. That's what it's like for him, to be expected to listen to them actually assemble the words so that they reflect the facts that they've already pulled from their minds. Waiting for them to say it is a tedium that he must endure while simultaneously being bombarded by all the other thoughts that they're having in that moment. So, while he is intolerable, you can understand why he has become intolerable. The first briefing gives us a sense of that as Data explains the mission. A trip to a sun about to go supernova, with a ship there called Tin Man, notable because it is a fully organic ship. Attempts to contact it have failed. Tin Man is too alien a creature to be able to communicate with, something anyone with a teenager can obviously relate to. So the hope is that in this case telepathy will work, and Tam is one of the best first contact specialists in the Federation, and clearly very excited at this opportunity. But there's concerns because the Romulans claim that sector as being theirs, and they regularly monitor Federation probes for information, so they know about Tin Man too and are sending their own ships. And sure enough, they're soon picking up signs of a cloaked Romulan vessel on the way, so this is now a race, and Romulans don't seem to be the kind to abide by the rules. Meanwhile, Tam is catching up with Troy, where we learn that he left a posting on Chandra 5, where he was happy because there were no humanoids. So clearly Tin Man must have really made an impression if he volunteered to go from no humanoids to over 1,000. Clearly he's intrigued, and it's gotten stronger since coming here, because Tin Man is already reaching out to him across distances that should be impossible for telepathy. For someone who craves novelty, Tin Man is the ultimate experience, something with an existence unlike his own in any possible way. It's like a worm suddenly being aware of what it's like to be a NASCAR driver. There's no conceiving of that existence. So Tam is giddy at the thought and races to the bridge the moment they're able to see Tin Man. Only the Romulans have dropped cloak and are heading in, shooting at the Enterprise while pushing their engines beyond safe limits, operating under the licked donut space policy. They get to the creature first and the Federation can't have it, even if their ship is going to have to be towed back home in the end. Data works with Tam to see what they can learn while the Enterprise is prepped to continue the journey. Mostly Tam goes poking about and asking questions of Data rather than involving himself with that, though. Clearly, he's fascinated with those outside of his experience. In a way, a kind of explorer who hates being caged with normalcy. Still a dick, though. In the end, he doesn't give a crap about anyone. Ironic, given that he could have ultimate people skills with his powers. I mean, he could easily get himself elected mayor if he tried. Instead, he pisses off Picard when he takes action after the Romulans move to Phase 2 of their plan. If they can't have Tin Man, they'll destroy it. So Tam sends out a message of danger. When I brought up a donut, I didn't mean to put an idea in anybody's head. And Riker dodged a bullet, nearly killed by a donut. That would have proved that snooty cardiologist right. Anyway, the Great Donut completely destroys that Romulan ship and kicks the ass of the Enterprise, leaving them scrambling to try to undo the damage before more Romulans show up. Tin Man tries this again, or the sun just decides to blow up. So Tam spills the beans. Tin Man calls itself Gomtuu and is thousands of years old, and is here to commit suicide. It hasn't seen any of its own kind for so long that it might very well be the last of them. And those that lived within it were killed because of radiation. So in its loneliness, it came to this star to be destroyed in the supernova. Because if you're going to make a grand exit for your species, hey, this is it. The only way to make it better would be to have some metal blaring when it happens. Tam says the only way to talk Tin Man out of this is to head over there. But Picard doesn't trust Tin Man or Tam's intentions. After all, Tam's actions came close to destroying the Enterprise while he was still standing on it. If he's that oblivious to his own safety, you can be damn sure he'll be oblivious to theirs. In private, Troy admits the same concern. Tam will tend to do what he thinks is the right thing, but he may not realize what the right thing is, or the consequences of what he thinks of as the right thing. Data thinks that he could help with that by going along. While Troy knows Tam better, he's more comfortable around Data, allowing Data to be a voice of reason in the situation without unwittingly triggering an episode like anyone with a readable mind might. While it isn't mentioned, this is, after all, the cause of that disaster that Tam was involved in. One ill-advised action in the wrong place at the wrong time destroyed everything. That's rough enough when it's limited to actions and words. What if it's a thought? something far less easily controlled. Data is the only one who could carefully measure every word and action so as not to make the situation worse. And when the Romulans show up and start waving their dicks around, Picard's officially stuck. The Romulans are going to destroy Tin Man, which means there's a good chance the Enterprise is going to get destroyed if Tin Man defends itself. So he sends the pair over to make sure that everything goes well and they're saved.
No, too much. Too much.
Tam?
I can't.
So the plan looks like it's off to a good start, huh? Of course, Tin Man needs Tam, and Tam needs Tin Man, so the two are going to be going off together in the end. And we all knew this. That is part of the weakness of the story. Not that it's predictable exactly, it's just, well, look, think of it like slipping on a banana peel. If the audience knows that there's a banana peel there, they're waiting for someone to slip on it. It's building up tension as it goes along. So the inevitable slip has to match the built-up tension. If you spend all this time showing the banana peel waiting there for somebody to slip on it, only in the end for someone to just pick it up and drop it in the trash, well, there's no payoff. It's kind of what goes on here. We've known that this was inevitable, but the way it's handled is just so blasé. It's banking solely on this union with us failing to be invested in it in any real way. So instead of being heartwarming, when the moment arrives, it's just, so that's it? Anyway, just before the star blows up, Tin Man knocks the other ships to safety. Data gets beamed back and says that he knows now that this is where he belongs. As if there was ever any thought it might not be. Post-episode follow-up. Annoying character goes to Tam, though it is clearly by design. Still, they succeeded at their mission in making him an asshole. Final score for Tin Man is 5 out of 10. It's a fine but rather unremarkable episode. It just fails to emotionally invest us in the character enough for the conclusion to matter, and betrays the weakness of this kind of story, where someone else comes in and takes over. Why should we care about Tam and his problems? What makes us want to have nearly every scene either be with him or somebody talking about him? Because the characters that we are emotionally invested in are the ones that we already know, who have all had to clear the way in order to allow Tam to take center stage. The only notable thing besides him in the story is the focus on LaForge trying to cope with all the bullshit that's actually thrown his way. I can't help but wonder if the episode ran short given how unimportant it is to actually watch him do these things. But this is the problem. Without that emotional connection, this is strictly a plot-driven story, and not a terribly impressive one. It's theoretically very good, but in practice it's just very meh.
All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
They claim that sector of space where Beta Stromgren is located.
The Romulans claim all that is in their field of vision.